Hello, welcome to the Scottish Football Show. Here's what we have for you. Scotland, okie dokie, but still no Sigvar. It's McCall over. Ian leaves Clyde. And is YouTube the future of watching football? I'm Andrew Slaven. Hello. This is the Scottish Football Show, the podcast that always picks you up when you are down. And fuck me, do we have our work cut out this week? Scotland caught out again against Croatia. We'll get onto that soon. But here to cut through the chaff, or add to it maybe, joining me once more into the breach, TNT's senior sport producer. A funny way of rounding it up there, but also fully paid up member of the Tartan Army, Laura Brannan.
Hello, how are you?
I'm all right. Just breathing. And also,
Assuring.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's one of those days. Or weekends, or months. Also with us, back in his motor, creative director from Melbourne City, Findlay Marks.
Hello.
I know that the hours have changed, or the clocks have changed over in Australia, so I can actually see we start this podcast. We always record this on a Sunday night, and it's always pitch black when Finn logs on. But there's some sunlight, some sunshine coming through your car window there, pal.
It's starting to, the sunlight is gently staining its surroundings with life, and before you know it, it'll be bricht in here as it gets darker over there for you.
Oh dear, dear, dear. Laura, you just briefly, you're back up the road because you're going to the Scotland-Portugal game. How was the trip?
I am back in my old bedroom from when I was a teenager, and I am dreading Tuesday night at Hampden.
Oh dear. Well, let's try and put some cheer into any listener's ears as well as your own. So, does anyone want to start off with something funny that they saw around Scottish football this weekend?
It wasn't quite just Scottish football, but our
great start.
Our Celtic
Scottish football show, everyone.
It's the international break. Let's try and work with what we've got here. No, but it's our Celtic cousins across the water. I don't know if you saw quite a lot of Irish fans turned up to the game in the new kind of Castor kit. But whereas the sponsor for their shirt nominally is Sky, quite a few Irish fans had replaced it either with the words Fire Stick or Dodgy Box, which is there's probably very real industry consequences that you guys are not fans of. But I just thought that was quite good banter, and kind of sums up maybe where a lot of fans feel, especially fans in the UK or the British Isles that do tend to, compared to other countries, have to fork out enormous amounts of money to follow their clubs and their international countries.
It's fine, it'll see YouTube next. So that's
Yeah,
the future, isn't it?
Maybe. Did anyone result to the side? Did anyone catch Michael Stewart's quite strange co-commentary while Scotland were playing Croatia?
This was very random.
Oh, right, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell the story, Laura? Go for it.
So obviously the news of Alex Salmon passing came out around half an hour into the game, and it was maybe about 45 minutes later or something. So it was deep into the second half by this point, and Michael Stewart came out with a fact, and it was the only other First Minister who has died is Donald Dewar, and he passed away when Scotland were also playing Croatia. And it was also 1 each, which was the score at that point when he was saying it. Is this true?
I mean, aye, it is, but it was not the same day. The one thing that was very true is that it was also in Croatia, but it was just like,
So
this is
random.
football, mate.
To be fair, to have found that stat was quite impressive. So fair play. And I think everyone went, whoa, what? What?
That was the overriding vibe I got from it. It was just like, right, come on, Scotland. Come on, go for it. Huh? Where did that come from? I just like the fact that Michael Stewart said, like, we're in Halloween season pretty much, aren't we? Goes like, it's a spooky stat. This we're trying to be kind of media savvy about it all. Right. We do have this new segment on the podcast where we, as industry experts, try to pass on our knowledge to anyone who cares. And hopefully you do. So if you do have questions that you may have about working in sport television or specifically football, or you want to know anything that we've been up to, do send in your questions on any of our social channels. But Laura, do we have a question for this week? Or
This
an
was
answer to give?
this was an inadverted one, so they didn't SPFL Media Watch on Twitter didn't ask us directly, but I did see him talking about the meeting that Inverness Kelly Thistle had at the start of the week. And he raised a very interesting question, which, well, interesting that I picked up on it. Andrea, I know you find this extremely boring, but he asked the question. He raised an eyebrow at the fact that Kelly Thistle are paying for their kit. And I thought that was quite obvious that they would be paying for their kit, but he seemed quite surprised by it.
I don't think most people would not. I think especially maybe if you support a club, which the numbers would suggest that's more probable in Scotland or whatever, that's in like the higher up divisions or the top flight. I think most people expect that clubs kits are made and supplied for them. And that's generally the case for the higher up clubs, but it's kind of more staggered. So basically the lower down the football chain you go, the more likely it is that your club, your team will be paying for their kit, not be paid for it. But there's all sorts of peculiar anomalies and things around kits as well. Because even it's like our club's experience. So Melbourne City are part of the City Football Group, obviously. Manchester City have a massive kit deal with Puma, so they are paid to wear Puma kits, and that's a huge revenue stream for Manchester City. As part of that, then whoever is the kit manufacturer for Manchester City will also, as part of that deal, be asked to make kits for Melbourne City and New York City, which are the two other clubs that are owned outright by the City Group. But it's not the same process. So whereas in Puma's standing, Manchester City are considered an elite level club, as would Borussia Dortmund or a couple of other big European names, which means they get a bespoke kit every season or a series of bespoke kits. That's what their kind of design team focus their attentions on. Then you can get like a secondary round of teams that will still be like high profile, like maybe like other big European teams. And then there are like a kind of third tier level of teams, which would be Melbourne City. So essentially, by the time it gets to us, yes, we get our kits made and supplied for us, but you kind of just get given two designs to choose from the Puma catalogue that will be coming out, and then you pick which one you prefer. What's cool though over time is that next season, for the first time ever, we have been able to have some input in what our kits look like and the patterns and designs, because we have a whole creative approach now. That was
Is that
kind
you
of signed off
specifically, Finn?
last year. Not me specifically. I wasn't working with the kits, but I've been part of the team that has been working with this kind of like creative direction that we've all
That's
been
cool,
working and nurturing on as a club. So that is quite cool because it means that it's something that looks closer to a bespoke kit from what we've done before. But also as well, where Manchester City will get their kits supplied to them in April, so before the end of the season happens, so that they can make content and all of that stuff. We don't. We get ours out about 3 weeks ahead of the season starting, which means that turning around like kit launches and all the rest of it is a bit more fraught than if you're able to work with a supplier ahead of the off season and film all that stuff ahead of time. So, but it's I think there's lots of different anomalies like that for different clubs, no matter where you are in the world, not just Scottish football.
Yeah, in Scotland, you'll find the way it's broken down is like Celtic and Rangers, they'll be paid to take on their suppliers. The rest of the Premiership will be given this gift of kit. So it's not so much an exchange of money, but they're given the kit, and then there's obviously a share in revenue. But the lower teams below that, which is where Inverness come in, they'll have to pay for it. That's quite normal for that level, because when you think about it, it's expensive to manufacture these kits when you've not got the same revenue, that you've not got the same like kind of cameras on them week in, week out. You've not got the same fan base snapping up and buying the kits. So there's not a lot of money involved at a club like Inverness with their fan base. So that is why they have to pay for it, because then you look at like Macron, for example. Macron do a lot of different kits in Scotland. They're all the same.
Mhm.
What they do is they save the money on then putting the badge on after. So everyone has a similar kit and they just stick the badge on afterwards. So what you'll find is sometimes like we found it when we were at Motherwell, the training kit one season would be St Mirren's training kit the next season. And the
Mhm.
only difference would be the badge is different. And it's just their way of cost cutting, because it's not like, Finsay, Man City. It's not even like when I was at West Ham, they're getting bespoke kits made and everything. It's not quite those levels. As soon as you go down to Kelly Thistle's level, it's nothing like that.
But we have seen, I mean, with Inverness, this just highlights the fact that it's just another issue where the leadership there has kind of fallen short in managing their finances. But if this is more of a general kit um uh conversation, the amount of kits that have came out that are really, really cool, that don't it's been pretty impressive. If at the end of the day, like I think there's a lot of Scottish kits that have been really um pretty interesting, exciting. I know you guys are more into that than I am per se, because you guys are super creative.
The
But
thing is, Inverness's away kit this season is actually one of the best ones I've seen.
mm,
Yeah, it's one of my favorite ones from the whole league. I know we didn't go over the kits at the start of this season like we normally do, but
yeah,
I love their kit. It is this really cool sort of a scratchy effect. Really nice kind of mix of navy blue and black. A little bit of gold through it. No, it's actually quite classy. I don't know what template that is copied off of, but they've done well regardless.
how much is it right now?
The kit, I'm
Yeah,
going I'm going to take a guess at around 75 quid.
right, 75 quid. So if everyone in Scotland buys an Inverness kit by Wednesday, then they might have some help, because I think you know we focused on Inverness last week, didn't we? The issue with them now is that I think their GoFundMe page that they had set up, because they had to raise £200,000 by Wednesday this week. Um, as it stands, bear in mind we're recording this on a Sunday, it's just under 80,000, just about to touch 80,000. So they've got less than 4 days to turn that around. So why doesn't everyone just buy? I'm going to buy an Inverness kit this week,
You're going to wear it in the show next week.
and I'll wear it in the show next week. And if I don't wear it in the show, I'll blame whoever provides the kit for bad distribution costs. Very bad delivery system. It's probably Amazon, let's face it. Um, should we talk about some news then after all of that, now that we've kind of cleared up Inverness and their many, many worries? Where should we start? Should we start with Hearts, actually? Because they're still in the job hunt. What's happening there? They were linked with, was it? I might get the name wrong here. Sorry, folks. Per Matthias Hogmo? That's not happening anymore, is it?
No, it looked like it was he was the front runner for quite some time. I think the Daily Record were certainly running with that story. It seems to have been quite close, but it's the talks. It's almost like as soon as it's arrived, they've kind of been quashed. From my understanding, I think it's also basically just kind of down to money. I think it was some sort of agreement or separation package from his last club, or salary coming into the new job as it was the stumbling block. And there was quite an interesting tweet that Scott McIntosh, friend of the show, people might know him through his channel Amoruso Lets It Run. Massive Hearts fan, but he'd put out a tweet kind of talking about it a little bit. He was giving us some information on Hogmo and supposedly the talks that had been ongoing, which was in his previous job, which I think was in Japan in the J League.
Okay.
His annual salary was roughly $1 million, which is around 4 times more than Hearts have been paying their last two managers. Now, while obviously that's quite a jump, and maybe for a club like Hearts, that's not the kind of money they want to be spending on the manager team. I would suggest £1 million is not a ridiculous salary for a high end manager in the modern game. And he was kind of making the point, which goes into a slightly broader point around Scottish football that affects all clubs, including the big two, which is maybe when you have a statistical model coming in, as Hearts potentially are leaning on from the links with Tony Bloom and Brighton, which is almost second to none in the modern game in terms of the way that they're able to scout talent, both on and off the pitch. You're still ultimately coming to a glass ceiling in the Scottish game in terms of your recruitment, both financially and the draw then that potentially comes with that as well. And if that's the reason that Hogmo's not been able to take over at Hearts and come into the game, that is frustrating, not just for Hearts fans, but for the Scottish game. But then in other circumstances, it is to be celebrated. I think when you do get good and interesting, progressive modern managers coming into our game from outside or from Europe or from other parts of the world, like Postecoglou or Taylin or Clement, or like these kind of managers coming into the game. So yeah, the search goes on for Hearts. It will be interesting to see. They're certainly, by the looks of that, even with Hogmo, even if he's not coming in, they're obviously looking further afield than they maybe have done in the past. So that's an interesting one. I just think this, as I've said before, this whole it's not so much an experiment, but this whole kind of theme that a lot of clubs, especially towards the higher end of the top flight, Hearts and Aberdeen, I just think this is the issue you're always going to get with rookie managers, in that they might be good in certain circumstances, but they have not been allowed to learn to fail, and they won't be allowed to learn how to fail and to recover from that in these high pressure, high profile jobs. So it'll be interesting to see who comes in.
So it's Neil So this Neil Critchley guy used to be the assistant manager with Steven Gerrard at Aston Villa, didn't he? So he's got good friends in the game, you would expect. So hopefully he can tie into some of that. What else has been going on in the news world?
Ian McCall's away.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did see that actually.
So he's been in the job for a year from Clyde. I took over just
Yeah.
last year, wasn't it? They're
Pretty much almost a year ago, yeah.
like they're sitting rock bottom of League Two right now. 8 points from 9 games. It's
Mm-hmm.
look, it's the stats don't read well, but it's tight. It's tight at that whole kind of bottom half of that table just now. So it's not. I mean, we're very early stages of the season. He's had a tough ride recently. They've won one game so far in the league, and that was way back in start of August. So it's been a run
Start
of
of the season. It's first game of the season. Stranraer, wasn't it?
defeats, run of 4 draws recently as well. He's just not getting that breakthrough. It's been a difficult time for him.
It's one of those where sometimes, the story broke with what was it? It was mutual consent. So it's one of those where you can probably say conversations happen behind closed doors where it's like, it's just not working, is it? And you just part ways. At the end of the day, he did save Clyde from potential relegation from League Two last season. That's what he'll be remembered for rather than the start. So it's a good opportunity for someone to come in and take on that team, because I know they did. I can't remember some signings off the top of my head, but they were certainly bookies' favourites to win the league this season, and it's still early stages. So Neil Scally and Mark Kerr are going to take over on caretaker basis. That's who it was. I'm just reading that now. So who
Mark
knows?
Kerr, it's a championship manager legend from back in the day.
Absolutely.
I think the things with McCall, like you can afford to have a level of pragmatism, I think, with this as well, which is the mutual consent thing maybe alludes to the fact that it's not wholesale, it's not broadly worked out, but you can't say it wasn't a good appointment, because he very much did stop the rot and save them from relegation last year, because they looked like they were plummeting out of the league system. And for a club like Clyde, that would be unthinkable.
Horrible.
They just, I know they've kind of like traipsed around, flitting on the odd occasion up to League One, but a lot around League Two over the last number of seasons. But to drop out the league system would just be disastrous for a club like that. And they're such a historic, important club in the terms of Scottish football. It's always because I'm just looking at a lot of the results, even under McCall last season, and certainly going into this season, he's not actually lost a huge amount of games, but it's
Only
more that they
three.
can't find a way to win them. So a lot of draws. I think it's been 5 already in the league this season, and there were a lot of games last season where they lost like goals, or they really had to scrap from like going 2 or even 3 goals down at some points to fight back to then scrap and get a point out a game where you're like, well, if you just started like that, you could have taken all 3. Um, but yeah, again, it's an important appointment for Clyde. Like it is every time you
Huge.
appoint a new manager. But I think, given where the club's been in the last couple of years, they really need a steady hand and I think an experienced manager that
It's
knows
funny
the
because
division
you
well
just
as well to get out
basically
of it.
you kind of described
Talking
Ian
about Ian
McCall
McCall.
there.
But the things about Ian McCall, and I remember saying this at a time roundabout when he was appointed, is I don't think it's doing a disservice to Clyde to say he's a manager whose capabilities should be operating at a far higher level than League Two.
Yeah.
And it is that kind of thing. I don't know how many managers that have been operating in and around the championship or the top flight for a while. Of course, you'll know the lower leagues, but every league is slightly different. And what you need to get out of League Two or survive in League Two is not necessarily what you need to survive and get out of League One or the championship. Like there are different things. And McCall really at heart, I would say, is a championship or, in spells, a top flight manager. And maybe you just need somebody who's got all of that or close to that kind of experience, but knows League Two and how to operate in that league well and get
Well,
out of
like
it. So yeah.
Ian McCall, I've got a bit of a soft spot for him. I think there's loads of people that can't stand him, but he's a local Dumfries boy. At the end of the day, he's done a lot of the game. I think it's 9 clubs he's managed in Scottish football across all the leagues, league levels. He won promotion at Clyde Bank back in '98, from the second division. He won the Scottish Challenge Cup with Airdrie. He won the Stirlingshire Cup with Falkirk. Can you tell I'm on Wikipedia? Uh, Ayr United won League One with them, with a certain Lawrence Shankland up front for him. And then got to the Championship playoffs as well. Then what else was it? Scottish League One with Partick Thistle, who he's been with twice. So he's got stick in the game, man. I don't think this is a failure for him, and I certainly hope he finds a club soon. Go on, Ian. You're all right. Right, shall we get to the big old meat and drink of this podcast? Because my God, we need to find some positive things to say about Scotland. Will we hear it, or will it be more guff?
Kieran Tierney, he timed that perfectly. Now, can he pick out the killer pass? There's McTominay! Oh, what a hit from Scott McTominay! Listen to this place! Hampden Park is rocking once again!
Right, so Scotland, international football. We love that, don't we? Wrong. It's all going wrong again. We're back where we shouldn't belong, losing football matches. After everything was going so great for so many years, Scotland went in against Croatia, a team we've had good results against in the past until recently. I don't know if I just should hand this to Laura or not. This is our third game in the Nations League. A pathway to potential qualification to the World Cup. These are games that, they do matter because they're all competitive. We just cannot buy a win right now, Laura. However, there's a lot of people saying it was a great performance. Does it matter?
But yes and no. It matters in the sense that we have shown great improvement since the Euros. I think we all are in agreement where we went into the Euros ridiculously negatively. It was the wrong approach. We've absolutely destroyed Steve Clarke for that. It was wrong. But what we've done in the 3 games after, we have actually looked good. We have had 3 very good performances. We just cannot buy the luck. We cannot buy the goals. We are getting utterly screwed over by VAR. I'm not blaming that for the bad run right now, but if you strip it down, we lost the game to Poland on a 97th minute penalty. We crumbled at the end of the Portugal away game, where a draw would actually have been a good result for us. And then we got done out of a draw in the 94th minute against Croatia, which would have been a very well-deserved draw. So when you actually break it down, getting points out of these games would not have been a surprise had luck and goals gone in our favour. But at the end of the day, it means absolutely nothing because we're sitting rock bottom of the Nations League table. We are not going to get the helping hand to the World Cup, which we've benefited from so well in the past through this competition. We're going to ultimately slip down into pot 3 ahead of the World Cup qualifiers, the draw being made in December. We're going to make it very difficult for ourselves in the long run to get back to the nice, fun heights that we'd built ourselves up to. It's a very frustrating and deflating time to be a Scotland fan.
It's normally the thing is it's so difficult because you do see us playing well in these games, but there seems to be zero end product, and let's face it, Scotland has relied on goals from everywhere in its squad. It's never been all about the striker with Scotland under Steve Clarke. So it's just I just wonder if when this whole process started with Steve Clarke, it was very much a case of all the luck seemed to be coming our way. But now it's all gone. Like, will it come back again under Steve Clarke?
Look, I just we're punching above our weight right now being in League A.
We always have.
It's not where Scotland should be, and we are not comfortable being in this place. We were so comfortable being in League C, where we excelled. We then went up to League B, and we grew with the move, and actually did really well, and benefited from it. In many ways, not only the qualification, but we became a better team for it. League B is where we should be. That is our level, and to be honest, personally speaking, the sooner we go back down to League B, I think the better, and the longer run of success we have when you look at it in the bigger picture.
Steve came out and did say, I think he was asked, what gets Scotland to that next level? We've played well in these games, but we can't score goals and we can't hold on to leads, and we can't stop goals going in the final minutes of matches. He's came out and he has, fair. It's fine to blame the amount of injuries, but we have been losing players that haven't been massive players for Scotland, other than the likes of Kieran Tierney and John McGinn. But the only other players we've been missing are Greg Taylor, Lewis Ferguson, James Forrest, and Aaron Hickey, who, other than James Forrest, who's barely been in the side until it came into the Euros, Greg Taylor never plays. Lewis Ferguson.
You can't
blame injuries.
No. But McGinn's not even been on it recently. He's been completely off form.
He's played so much football.
Exactly that. And you look at even Andy Robertson, he's not been on it for Scotland recently because he's played so much football.
So who's not picking up the slack? So where's everyone else? We always look to Scott McTominay. So, my question is, and I know Shea Adams had a bit of a virus against Croatia. So I think that's why he didn't start. But Lyndon Dykes should be doing so much better. I don't think he's match fit.
Is he not match fit because he's at a lower level now? Should we be picking players that are playing in third tier of England?
Well, I mean, let's pick on one of the positive things. Because Ben Doak got his first start for Scotland. He's playing in the Championship for Middlesbrough, on loan from Liverpool. 18 years old. I think he must be one of the youngest players to have ever started for Scotland. But he looked fantastic, absolutely brilliant. Like kind of this type of player that, like, when Ryan Fraser first came onto the scene for Scotland, had that sort of impact and that
James
sort of
Forrest
danger.
as well.
And James Forrest.
Oh, it's someone playing with no fear, and it's really exciting to watch.
Nothing but everything to prove.
I do think there's something in modern football where, because of the incredible volume of games that players are playing, especially at an elite level, even though like the sports science and everything is far better, and they look after themselves as professional athletes far better than they did generations ago. They're still playing, if you're John McGinn, you're playing close to 80 games, like a year in a calendar year, which is an enormous strain on your body. It's the same as like if you're only using your car to do like small trips or whatever around town, that's one thing. If you're using that car to drive between major cities on motorways and stuff every day, the wear and tear will get to the car quicker. So to be expecting these players to deliver the same performance level from the age of maybe like 22 or whatever till later, and you see it, like, see late developers, you're like, how does that player, like, one that always comes to my mind was like David Weir was playing club and international football at an incredibly high level until he was like 40, 41, and close to the national team. And that's even after the legs have gone a wee bit. But, he was very smart positionally and was never able to overrun him too much. But he wasn't really playing at a high level and with this like kind of 40, 50 game a season type season until he was way older. Like he was, I think he was still playing semi-pro, I think until about 23 or 24. It was very late. So like if some players like, Lewis Ferguson's already played what, 300 or 200 career performances by the time he's hitting 22, 23, captain of Aberdeen. All these players are different. And I just wonder if it's, well, the style of football, which is very blood and thunder, that Lyndon Dykes plays, whether it's maybe starting to take a toll slightly earlier than it would. You can't convince me. I know he's been an incredible servant for Scotland, and we know what we're getting with Lyndon Dykes, but you can't convince me that somebody playing in the third tier of English football against a level of opposition that you're going to be facing most weeks will be able to give you what you need at an international level, from the way that they're playing. So for me, I agree with you. I think you have to have such pragmatism at international level that you can't be like, this person has served us so well in the past, let's keep shoehorning them into a team and trying to play the same way. You cannot do that at international level. It's the other thing as well, where like, you feel bad for saying this, but Craig Gordon should be nowhere near the Scotland setup now, unless he's coming in at a coaching level. That's my personal opinion. It's not saying that he's not capable of being a good goalkeeper, or that he's, like, handshake, thanks very much for the memories, like, get out the squad kind of thing. We should not be still looking to play the same players and systems and shoehorn these players into that system, regardless of who's turning up, round after round after round of international fixtures. To me, it's an indictment on Clark, because it's always this double-edged sword of like, the things that they're good at can be the downfall as well. With Clark, what he did amazingly and has done amazingly is that he's used the players at his disposal to find a good, rigid, structured system that worked for a number of years, that got us good results, that qualified us for tournaments. But that same rigidity over time will cost you, because when you don't have the players turning up through injury or suspension or lack of form or whatever, but you're still like, well, when they are fit, they'll be going into the team, like Craig Gordon, like Lyndon Dykes, and we're going to play this way or the highway. To me, that is not how you stay relevant at an international level. And I think that's been Scotland's downfall increasingly over the last 18 months or so, really since the Spain game.
Amazingly, I really found this quite fun, that Craig Gordon, when he made his first start for Scotland, which was back in 2004, that was 18 months before Ben Doak was even born. And so I found it so interesting that I decided to look back and see what else had happened in 2004. So back when Craig Gordon started his first game for Scotland, which was against Trinidad and Tobago, a victory, happy days. That was the same year that the Spice Girls split up. It was also, do you know what was the best movie of the year? Shrek 2.
Jeez.
Wow.
Blast from the Past. Do you know what else happened that year?
Best movie of the year or highest grossing movie of the year?
I think it was highest grossing. Do you know what else happened in 2004? Facebook was launched.
What?
Wow.
And MySpace got the first was the first social platform to gain 1 million users.
So MySpace was still huge when Craig got
MySpace was
his
still
debut.
massive, yeah. Back in
Amazing.
the day, yeah.
The kind of the most sobering stat or tweet or whatever that I saw around it was actually a Ray Bradshaw comedian had tweeted
Oh,
out
he's
saying
brilliant.
Ben Doak starts for Scotland. He was born 2 weeks after I Bet You Look Good in the Dance Floor was at #1 in the UK charts. That's how old we are.
That was the other one. Mr. Brightside was released by the Killers,
Oh,
which is
2004.
probably still in the top 100 charts.
one of the worst songs in the entire history of music.
It was
You've
the
not
one.
been to a wedding has not become officially a wedding until that song is
Oh,
played at some point.
it's a surefire
Yeah,
sign. You
true.
know if I'm drunk if I'm singing Mr. Brightside because I
Mhm.
despise it. So if I'm singing it,
Because you don't know what's
I'm in
going
a
on.
very good mood.
Oh dear. Well, there you go. See, we've all had a laugh. We've brought things back up for everyone. That's good.
Should we talk about broadcast rights? Just to bring the mood back down a little bit for everybody. Don't want to get too
No.
ahead of ourselves. Don't want to get too high and happy.
Yeah, let's do that, Finn. Why not? Because we were on YouTube. That big broadcaster. Weird one, this, Laura, because last time we were on ITV,
Channel 4.
Channel 4, and now this time nobody wants our rights. And I did
It's,
see an article on The Athletic about like, is international football dead?
what? That's ridiculous.
Worth a read. That's all I'll say. But you know, is YouTube the way forward?
It's international football dead. I'm sorry, because no one cares when the World Cup comes around. We all just ignore it. It's not the greatest social event of the summer. Anyway,
Good article.
yeah, it's a strange shift right now. It is it's quite something when the international games aren't getting picked up. I mean, it's the Nations League in general isn't generating a lot of interest for broadcasters. It's not just Scotland games. So Northern Ireland's their game against Belarus was on YouTube as well. What's interesting though is the numbers watching these games. I don't know the overall numbers in total, but it was noted on Twitter that at one point 200,000 were watching the Scotland game. And at another point there was 15,000 watching the Northern Ireland game when they played later. There's a little bit of a shift there. Um, there's a lot that goes into this in terms of is is broadcast actually dying is one question, which is a whole huge topic, which would affect our jobs more than anything as well. So hopefully not. But at the same time, are we moving with the times where we're actually like streaming things on YouTube is actually the way forward, even if broadcasters do have the rights? Are we going to be seeing more things on YouTube, making it easier for people to watch?
I mean,
It's a very big question.
it's a very big question. I mean, streaming platforms are without doubt taking over people's lives.
But
That's
then you
just
look, sorry, but look at the Champions League final and Europa League final. BT back in the day, now TNT Sports stream was live and is as
yeah.
a way of firstly celebrating the fact it's a huge game and a huge tournament that everyone wants to see, but also it's a good advert for the company as well.
Well, I did read some, and I've just got the article up now that the Women's Super League or the WSL in England, they moved to start streaming live on YouTube as well. The games that are not being broadcast by Sky, who own the WSL rights, and their viewing figures like more than trebled
It's a
by
great
being
idea.
on YouTube.
That is
Well, the thing is,
that's a
it's
good
a
idea
great
for that.
idea, but it's, I don't have a marketing brain. I don't have like a, some sort of like business acumen to turn around and say like, well, this is great for the Scottish FA to do it and then bring in more advertising, because ultimately you are bringing in revenue for YouTube more than you are bringing in revenue for the Scottish FA or something like that. But of course, free football is always going to get people watching because it's free. So there
Oh,
has to be
yeah, but
some
I mean,
sort of
there's also
monetization
potentially an
involved.
argument there that you slightly diminish the product by making it free and it's much more disposable. People can tune in or not. But
Well,
I do
exactly,
think
exactly.
increasingly like it's you would be absolutely daft not to consider YouTube or any other kind of like streaming or broadcasting capabilities like this going forward. You have to. I think you're right, alluding to the kind of the European finals getting broadcast for free as well, Laura. Like if you read around and look at viewing habits, especially of kind of uh, younger millennials and people that are much younger, that is the way that they consume media. They don't really watch TV. You don't sit down and watch broadcasts anymore. You might watch something on catch up, or you certainly would use the streaming services to catch up on stuff or whatever. But things like Twitch and YouTube are where they're viewing 80-90% of their content and getting their information and
And
everything.
you'll find they tune in right in time for kickoff and they'll switch off at full time. They're not
Yeah.
consuming your pre-match analysis, your post-match analysis, which is exactly what Scotland ended up showing on Saturday. Was it started with the teams walking out the tunnel and it finished with the teams walking off the pitch again. Now, personally speaking, I don't like that. I want to consume everything
I
around
don't
it,
like
but
it either.
that is where the younger generation's attention span is leading to. So it does beg the question of, if, for example, the SPFL streamed the games that weren't being picked up by Premier Sports and Sky Sports, would you watch them? Would you watch a one camera feed of Hearts Dundee? I probably would.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
yeah, I
Or at least
do.
have
I
it
do.
on. I'd at least
Yeah,
have
I
it
try and
on, and I'd be a figure that says I was watching it. It'd be on in the background at least.
it's also
especially when
if
you
it
have
was
games like
something.
Celtic Aberdeen that aren't going to get broadcasted. But that's a blackout conversation. This is where we are going on a heavy tangent here on so many other things, because I could go back and talk about the European games like on TNT and whatever getting put on, like it's the final that goes on YouTube or whatever. Like that's part of a UEFA like contract, because it's on like pay-per-view. The final has to be free. That's not like a TNT deal. That's not them, although they will market it that way. But that's just
Connected
the clever
matches.
the
It's the
clever
reason
bollocks of it all.
the World Cup is still on BBC.
Exactly.
It's free to.
It, absolutely. But at the end of the day, if you watched the YouTube channel, it was that the Scotland game was literally, the teams come out, but at halftime, or I think beforehand, it was a Ryan Christie feature for like 4 minutes or whatever, and they repeated that. So there's no like personality around it. There's no fun or
Wasn't
enjoyment
even
in
a
watching
commentator until the day before the game.
it.
They hadn't even
Really?
confirmed that Rory Hamilton was going to be doing the commentary until I think 24 hours before it.
Well, friend of the podcast, Rory Hamilton, I was very delighted to hear his voice on it. Right, we should move on just quickly about Portugal. This was a game that I said that forget about Croatia. Like, I just want to beat Portugal at home. I want a win at Hampden. This has to be the game that turns everything around, because it is an incredible run, 15 games without a victory. Am I wrong? It's pretty bad, man. Pretty bad. Um, will I enjoy my Tuesday night, Laura?
No. No, this I don't see it happening. It's also got to the stage where Portugal are 3 from 3 now. Do we just let them run away with it? And is there a way to claw back second place with the last 2 games? Probably not actually if it's head to head, because Croatia would beat us in that. So even that's out now, unless we beat Portugal. Do we just accept we get relegated from League A and go back to where we belong and enjoy it a
I
couple
don't
of years
care
time?
about relegation. Yeah, the relegation doesn't matter to me. It's just right now, there's so many good things happening when I watch Scotland. It's just we can't score goals. Like we are have been for years like a world-class striker away from being a top 10 team.
I'm not sure if that's quite the fine margin of it. I think I again, like I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I know you're kind of feeling that like League B is our level. I think we should be the kind of country that we know we're not going to compete with the likes of, just in terms of size and resources and everything, with like France and Germany, England, Portugal, Spain, that you would see as like the mainstays of League A. But even then, like we've seen England are in League B at the moment because they didn't have a good run in what was a particularly hard group in League A. I think Scotland should be aiming to be a team that kind of flits between A and B. And every time you get up to A, you should be trying to look to compete better, to learn more, learn from your mistakes, set up better against these types of teams. Because this is the whole point of the Nations League, right? It's to pit you against teams that are more of your level and give you a kind of slightly better starting base, so that teams that are potentially all the way down in League D are able to find a way to play against teams that are more round about them, to try and elevate themselves to competing against teams from League C when they get the opportunity. Probably will go back down to League D at some point, but it should, I think it should be the same for us. We should be looking to, that's the benchmark. That's where we want to be. That's where we want to be competing. Like our domestic teams at a European level, you don't want to just be like, right, tail between our legs, know our place. That's just, we shouldn't be at the top table. It's like we should be. We're a really important country, both internationally and on a continental stage. Scotland is. And I think we've lost our way, certainly over the last number of decades, but that's where we should be aiming to get back to and being part of that conversation. And it'll be hard work to maintain staying there. We might get good pockets like we've had over the last couple of years where you get up to those higher echelons, and you'll have fallow years where you have to, go away and regroup and come back and blood in new players. But I think that's where we should be. I don't think we should be seeing ourselves as we're League B. We're a League B team. It's like we should be aspiring to League A and flitting between the two. I think that's where it is. This campaign's not been great. I think if you can learn from it, and I think there are encouraging signs for me as well in the way that we've played. I haven't got the results yet, but I am seeing quite a lot of more positive things in the performance. And we are starting to bring in, I think, a crop of a very good and potentially generation leading talent of Scottish football, and giving us options. So there's plus signs there, but it's trying to find that pragmatism, I think, in amongst the emotion of it, which is hard when it comes to your national country.
It would be very nice to also not be done over by VAR for once watching a Scotland game, because if it's Croatia, Poland, Spain last year, Hungary not even getting that penalty, it's just a combination of VAR is the worst thing to have ever happened to football, and it kills all emotions involved. I long for the day where I'm not the split second of celebrating a goal going in for Scotland and then having to pause and go, oh no, wait, was his big toe offside? It's just ridiculous, and it kills everything that Scotland, that football should be. Football is pure emotion, and it's an art, and VAR has absolutely taken all that away.
And on that bombshell.
And I totally disagree, but we don't have time for it. Maybe we will have time next week. Finn, you basically said our success is our own demise. So happy days. Can't wait till Tuesday.
What's ever this?
This podcast is over for this week. So go and listen to something else. Good night. Goodbye. Good morning. See you later. Bye.